Okay, everybody, welcome to my first poetry reading. This poetry reading is called Skycutter. I recorded this private poetry reading last year, November 2013. But I've been having a lot of computer troubles with the old laptop that I was using. But I'm going to go ahead and play all 12 tracks. It's about an hour long of the private poetry reading of different things I've written and of short stories and poems and just different things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and play that right now. This is going to be for the disc, for the DVD.
Have an actual public poetry reading in 2 months from now. So I put out my first book that's coming out next week actually for sale, called Cut My Sky Out. I got the Purple Cowboy, if anybody knows what the Purple Cowboy is. Sort of a strong red, no, pretty strong red wine. It's as if there was a cowboy who dressed up like a cowboy, steel-toed cowboy boots and 10-gallon hat. Someone dipped him right in purple Kool-Aid and he peed in your drink. That's what you know what I'm tasting right now. I'm going to read one of the poems. This is not going to be in order. It's just, I'm going to read what I feel like reading, and you might get a bonus where I might read something that's actually not in the book coming out, because this CD will be attached to the book, I guess. I don't know. So I'm going to read for my first one, which is track 1, Cryptic Female Choice. And this is a remix of one of the other poems I've written a few years back. I don't remember which one, but it has to do with God and Jesus and just being really, really depressing, as if Satan wins in the world. Satan wins the final battle. I don't know why I thought that back then, but this is a remix of that poem. And that poem I'm talking about, the other one, is also in this book. I just don't know what the name is. This is called the Seed Thrower Remix. If anybody asks, I got inspired by a lot of industrial music back when I wrote these poems. Some of them. Cryptic Female Choice. Holocaust of intoxication, streets where fire falls. Skin picked off like cooked chicken. Shadows of clouds burn into poor walls. Wind chimes speak so awkward and futile. Rooms well lit, morgues filled with comas, clouded addictions, no souls or soma. She lays her brood, her smell lets down her hooks. The lotus slide across the floor, none properly sheltered. Just give me a second, I don't have my notes, they're on the car. My fiance took the car to go to college, so I have to read what's on the computer. And this computer sucks bad. Oh great, the computer froze. Oh, it came back. Just broke this freaking thing. Out the window. the stench, as if faith was ever really there. A scrounging creep to the hospital exit, teeth jagged with a taste too hard to swallow. 30,000 hang on execution stakes, violence, exile, payment. So it's probably either going to be my second book or it might just throw away, I'm not sure. But I wrote a short story that was based off of a book I wrote back in 2007 called Anarchy and Its Supporters. It's the last story of my second book that is going to come out sometime next year, November, December, whatever. I wrote it October 22nd of this year. And let me just tell you something. It's November 12th, 2013, and I am pissed. This morning, not this morning, but this afternoon, I had so much crap to do. But what happened was that I saw on the thing, on this computer, that I got finished writing all 40 poems for my new short poetry book, my first book, and I was really, really excited about it. And I waited at the computer for 31 minutes waiting for the internet browser to pop up on the screen. As you can tell, I'm a little bit antsy. I was ultra pissed earlier today. Like from what my friend, a little coin coin I bagged. I told my friend I was so mad I pooped sideways. So here's my story. It's called Anarchy and Support. It's a short story. You get the goods. Alright. I don't know if you'd see it by looking at me, but I used to be an anarchist. No, not left-wing Democrat, not cold-hearted look-out-for-yourself Republican, but a stone-cold anarchist. Hold on, I'm getting dizzy. I'm going to take another swig. Ooh, that's nasty. When I was 16, I printed out a Wikipedia post of what the information on there stated on anarchy and what anarchy is. My father disagreed and explained during the Fruitvale riots, which is a movie you can go see in theaters right now, because I used to live in a town next to Fruitvale. So during the Fruitvale riots, that those people along with me cannot be anarchists, he explained. An anarchist doesn't exist. He explained you can't be anarchy. Anarchy breaks out, thus creating chaos. You can be an agent of chaos, but not an anarchist. My political stance is always something difficult to describe. What am I? Not sure. I know for sure I'm not a Republican. There are too many lies thrown about where I found proof on a few things when watching the questionable Fox News network to think this hasn't much of anything to do with God. The Fox News has nothing to do with the Bible or Jesus or the Trinity or nothing like that. To poll in a party and say that I am something was easy before I got saved. 2006 to 2008, so those 2 years, I was a self-proclaimed anarchist. I used to get a few questions about that, like, you had to be a squatter punk, or why do you want to do this? Scroll down here. There are 2 reasons as to why I stopped. Number 1, I got saved and realized from reading selected scripture that I wasn't able to continue living by this system of thinking. It leads to nowhere, with me having no future. Couldn't just sit on the side of the road, a bum, watching the fleeting clouds, waiting for the government of chaos to ensue. God is a God of order, from what Alicia told me a few years back. Heaven is a hierarchy, and it is its own intricate system, not of the likes where people in my high school classes would debate. Go down.
Come on. Alright. I would hear side conversations of the majority of students question the few that had the guts to wear the big A on their clothes. One response I remember clearly hearing in algebra class junior year was a girl I had a crush on. She got defensive. A boy said if there was no government and we lived in chaos, then there would be violence all the time, where no one would be safe. Her response was, no! People just wouldn't act that way. Everyone would be in peace. See, I'm not that intelligent, but it takes a simpleton to know that statement was a load of crap. From the girl. The girl ended up being my optometrist out of high school. That's weird. That's not the story. Okay, hold on, I went too far. Yeah, that's way too. Okay, right here. Sorry, this computer is so bad. Okay. The second reason was that it sucks not having money. It's very difficult not having a job. Going to college, with their only job being the recruitment of having as many people join your movement as possible, which was next to none. Only 2 friends agreed with me, with one of them actually living it out. I fought that system only listening to rebellious music, telling people by speaking the propaganda, whatever I could, usually not yielding results though. This stuff would have worked back in the Vietnam days, but not during this era of my generation. We're talking about I became 10 years old, 9 or 10, when 2000 hit, so punk was way dead. Alright, so anyways, squatter punks are stupid anyways. I told my desert flower a few months back what the difference is between legit punks and legit Christians. This is a question that can be easily answered. Abby Hoffman, whom is somewhat considered punk in a sense, along with lines of Rembrandt and Steve Ignorant, all fighting for the causes of the lower class and the lost, who are somewhere over and under that chalk-drawn poverty line, along with the disasters of the American and the British governments. They felt that a lot needs to be changed, but still has things changed. From a punk's view, it's always no, but from a man of God's view, he's always hopeful. I told a joke to a bunch of punks and metalheads in an internet forum a few years back. The joke went something like this, and this joke pissed off a lot of people, I remember. Question: how many punks does it take to change a light bulb? Answer: none. Punks don't change anything. Come on, man. Ugh. Then you really have to ask yourself, atheist or not, how many bulbs did Jesus change? Now let me tell you, it was a crap load. I told Alicia, my desert flower, there is everything in common between punks and Christians. We both believe in a society of peace, virtue, and fellowship, where ours is a system of order under the hierarchy of God, as theirs was my old system, a system of chaos through anarchy. We both believe in love for each other, especially for people in our group, but hate the lukewarms, just like the punks hate the fakes. We both want to see change and a revolution in the world, where all the world's rich atrocities and wicked strongholds are broken down, so the lost, hopeless, and unloved have a say, a chance, and mostly important, know when they're loved. A man who walks with Jesus offers whatever he can to a homeless person, with that person always replying back through their overbearing poverty, God bless you. Like as if to say God is literally blessing you on the spot through the immortal words of some homeless people. Whereas the response by the world is typical and of a punk morality of, and a lot of punks, who is ever listening to this believes in punks, going to give me crap for this, but this is my opinion. where they would say things like, I'd give you this dollar, but I can't. I believe in anarchy, and my priorities are to wait and watch the world burn. Sorry. Then walk off without thinking a second thought. Are you starting to gather an understanding? I wrote a book back in '08 called Anarchy and Supporters. Something like 36 pages was a fictional story about these three punk kids named James, Clyde, and Brewster, all trying to gather what they can to kill off the mainstream. In their high school and their new mortal enemies, and I'm talking about Nazi punks, and I'm not talking about just Nazi punks, but emos, the new wave, new hippie subculture. I never did finish that book. It's very difficult to write a book that consists of 300 pages when I could only get to page 40. It was my Stephen King version of the frustrations of my life. I wanted to watch the world burn, just like what the Butler guy said in the Batman movie with Joker, Ledger, I forgot what it's called. But an awesome girlfriend that would do it with me and see the world's government spread into utter chaos. I wanted to be a president and a teacher of the underground, sharing all I knew about chaos and how one would live in peace inside that world. But when you think about it, it actually makes no sense. And you have nothing left over, time. You have nothing but time to go get a job, go to college, and make your family proud. Selling out is the only way to go, even though a lot of people will disagree with that too. I mean, come on, have you seen the film SLC Punk? There's so many people that can get angry about this, but it's true. You don't have a choice. You have to get a job. You have to continue life. You can't just sit there, you know? That's what I used to think. Anyways, back in high school, I dreamed about stealing cars to run over emo kids. I'll wait for the laughs. Coming to school, packing an Uzi and an AK just to unload on anyone sporting a heartogram sweater or a swastika patch or backpacks with Avenged Sevenfold lyrics written on them by a whiteout pen. I found this all very disgusting to me and my crew because everything that we stood for. They were always confused with us by outsiders, and it always pissed me off. They weren't us. So everyone in the populace of our high school thought that we were emos. We used our music to be completely counterculture, but not in the ideologies of the hippie universe, but in the ways of violence. I believe in smaller versions of unconventional war amongst our enemies that conflicted with our ideals, which were against the Nazi punks, some metalheads, jocks, etc., but especially emos because they claim to be us. I guess this is why everyone hates hipsters. They sold out by listening to radio rock and roll and so-called punk, but had no idea how to live as a punk. They weren't scrounging for food like us or passing out pamphlets about the absurdities based on what President Bush was doing. Hell, most of them didn't even know who President Reagan was. So this is the last paragraph before it ends. I don't really have an ending to it, so I'll just make one up. We fought for our freedoms and showed our bravery under the symbol of the Anarchy banner when they held that same banner through their bands and loves, all to hit the country in tour buses by singing the same lyrics. It's like you saying you're with Jesus but slinging all your information about what's in the Quran saying Allah is the one true God when you're holding the banner of Jesus' cross on it. You can see the hypocrisy here. Then I saw life differently a few years out of high school. I was still fighting for what I knew what was right, but knew when hitting the age of 20 that this just isn't going anywhere. I always hated the ending of SLC Punk, the movie, because you had to sell out. I eventually got saved, and through listening to Alicia talk to me about the Bible and talk to me about how government systems work, and then your own conventional systems that you make among, villages or towns or whatever that you live by, it's not going to work because God is it's basically a monarchy where he's the king. Jesus is king, and it's a hierarchy of the archangels and angels and then, whatnot, and we're above all of them, but we're not exactly God. Jesus is God, so that's why I had to decide and tell myself one morning when I was in California, I said, I can't live by this anymore. It's cool if I'll still dress like this once in a while and, talk about it a little bit, but this can't be, I can't worship anarchy anymore. To me, it can't exist.
I wrote this one back in California. It's, I don't exactly remember what the poem is about. I'm like I'm really irritated right now. This computer is just not working. I'm really irritated. I think this one's about life at the time. It's like an cryptic journal entry. I'll just call it that. This is Patience Part 2. Part 1 is definitely in that book that's coming out. I'm gonna stop referencing the book because I hate it when writers or like movie makers or celebrities. I hate it when they do that. Like talk about stuff that's coming out for you to buy. I really despise them when they do that because it takes away the magic. So that's the last time I'm going to reference. I'm just going to tell you the poem. It's either going to be in there or not. I don't care. Patience Part 2. My body, my aching, tired arms, my back pains are not subtle, my humility worn. Neighbors speak clearly, they say my touch is soft, when nothing flows but soot from my palms. Like two rams consistently knocking horns, violently wagging tails, my numb head is worn. Oh no, this is a rhyming poem. This unrighteous anger, this weight on my shoulders, ever present, my teeth are tirelessly gnashing. This might be about that jerk guy I used to live next to who yelled at his kids all the time. Yeah, I think it's about that guy. I lived next to this neighbor who had just insane anger problems. And his kids were rotten, man. They were just horrible. I remember trying to walk into my house. This is in California, near San Francisco. I was trying to walk into my house. And the kid's outside his house wearing a Spider-Man costume, but without the Spider-Man mask. And his grandpa's outside. And my dad called the cops on his dad because their Rottweiler would bark day and night. And my dad told him, along with my mom, told them to keep their dog inside like 3 or 4 times. They told him like several times. And this kid looks at me as I'm pulling out my keys to unlock the door, and he yells, "You're the guy that called the cops." I'm like, "Dad, I'm gonna beat you up." And then he put his fist up like, "We're gonna fight." I'm like, this kid's like 4. And then the grandpa just started laughing. He's like, "Yeah, this guy's a real go-getter." I'm like, okay. Anyways, I'll continue with the poem. Lord, let me hear the ringing. Let me hear the sound, to wash this uncertainty off and reverse my frown. That sounds bad. I know this. I hear them in these words, ever building my muscles, ever pushing the stone. Coals that singe fill my only path to walk. Pride, like a black fire, it burns my heart and my mind. Allow me to hear such a sweet song. Place those coals on my back. Once and forevermore, I lug this for 7 months more. 7 months references to the fact that I had to wait another 7 months to come back to Tucson to be with
my desert flower. So had to wait in California and stare at the floor for 10 to 12 hours a day until I went to sleep and woke up, stare at the floor some more. I'll drink one.
This question, like, what do I get influenced by? What has shaped my work now, or what shaped my work first, was Walt Whitman. As I remember reading 3 poems in high school when I think I was either a sophomore or a junior, I'm not sure. And I read 3 different poems from this Leaves of Grass, and I remember, man, this is. And then I wrote some stuff, and then just because I wanted to, not for an assignment or anything, and I just knew, like, man, I'm really good at this. I'm not good at anything. I have, like, no talent in anything. I'm always the last in class. I'm always the last in PE. I'm last here, last there, last everywhere. Dr. Seuss. So this is called Werewolf Brotherhood. This has a lot to do with my old thing I used to worship when I was a Satanist. I used to worship the devil, and I used to use Ouija boards on a continual basis, and I was into spells, things like that. Funny story, I actually paid a voodoo shaman to cast 2 spells on me. I gave him $20 each online. And he put the money spell on me, where I got a certificate in the mail in, like, weird writing saying, like, February 28th is the next full moon, and I'm going down to the river to conduct the spell, so you're going to become rich. And then the second one was a love spell, and it was like a March 28th or 31st or something. I'm going down because that's the full moon, and I'm going to kill some snakes and get some blood and whatever, and you're going to be irresistible to women. That's $40. Anyways, true story. I know that's incredibly stupid. I will never ever do that again, especially now that, I'm a devout Christian guy. Anyways, so it's called the Werewolf Brotherhood. It's about those times, about how I'm not of it anymore, all these different things. Okay. A man of feeble thoughts, born and raised in the uppers and lowers in California. Courage that breaks like glass china dolls, and a fermenting group that's ripe for the picking. A brotherhood not held together in woods and forests, not even in high-top secluded temples, but inside the heart of basic suburban America, which is the Werewolf Brotherhood. Hold on, computer's freezing. Not the L. Ron Hubbards of Scientology, where they tricked and prodded and picked my father's brain. Not the cults of nonsense from the confusion of Club 46, which is the new atheist church, where the atheists give thanks and praises to their own ideologies. Not these, but the Satanic Verses. In 2006, I almost took that faithful leap unto Anton LaVey's stomping grounds in San Francisco, California. This mind warp conveys a message in a dark room, gives away to lesser strings to its audience. Dark videos of Adolf Hitler and, and, ugliest supremacy. 2006, I almost took that faithful leap unto Anton LaVey's stomping grounds in San Francisco, California. This mind warp conveys a message in a dark room, gives away to lesser strings to its audience. Dark videos of Adolf Hitler and ugliest supremacy. his supremacy, high atop his perch among the eagles and vultures. Charles Manson leading followers around on their hands and knees, perched atop that same perch. My own eyes got wider until they resembled silver dollar coins. A woman in black opened her mouth. I noticed her presidential pin of a goat head in 5-point. Speaking with our eyes locked, but locked with the rest of the room. She explained the 7 indulgences and explained my humanity. Whispers of sweet philosophies, make them strong, make them you. Those satanic verses. Unrighteous men throw the book across time through generations. A Victorian man in the 1700s throws his brain to a man wearing a suit in 1970. Now that I am free and greatly loved, Jesus has sawed my old cuffs for a new holy pain. The poems of life's macabre and the poems of a doomsday celebration has leaked and lost meaning, which that's a reference to stuff that I used to write. Like, I used to be highly influenced by like death and black metal lyrics and like thrash metal lyrics, but mostly like the stuff from Norway, like Mayhem, and I like some Venom at the time, and you know Satyricon, and you know I was influenced by that stuff, so that's a reference. Anyways, so the Doomsday Celebration, that's basically a saying. It's a song from a band called Morbid Angel, which was my favorite band in high school. Anyways, there was a transformation in my soul to the poems of psalms and heart-cooling verses, with a kissing touch gone sour and switches to venomous bites.
Alright, I'm going to cut that crap. Okay. So just do something a little different. I'm going to read a poem off of here. That I've been writing. Let's see here. Oh, I got a lot on here. Okay, page 2 and page 3. Okay, so I'm going to read a poem. It's called Me as Johnny Ace. I wrote it March 5th, 2014. It's going to be this is one of the new poems I wrote that's going in my second book, Jesus at Kmart Realism, the 300 Poems book. Okay. It's about me working at the Red Cross call center, bored out of my mind, wishing I was on tour playing jazz, but treating it like, you know, heavy metal, rock and roll type of show. Okay. I have gotten the chance to go on tour. Well, not yet. To the back alley bars and stink restaurants, touring with my acid band, Joust Central. I want to tour with 3 more jazzy bands, just like those musicians of the 1950s. We would bring our rifles and pistols to screw around with. I'd read the Bible on my bar stool, preach the good word while a little tipsy on the Purple Cowboy or acronym. The fans don't care, as long as the wine isn't past $50 for a cup. I want the other bands to consist of female performers. I'm devout to my baby, but there are too many men making history. Oh, I'm nauseous. Hold on. Okay. I gotta take that medicine. Okay. I'll get on stage when finished with the other bar hops and weirdos. Get myself ready to play the drums. I should do percussion Soul Train style, but that's not in me. I was influenced by Pete the Feet Sandoval. Hold on. Oh gosh. I've been sick for like 2.5 weeks. I still feel like crap. Oh baby. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. The stand-up comedian introduces us after second intermission. Like Johnny Ace, I pulled the trigger in the back, but this time there were no bullets in the chamber. When I started the blast beats, the audience yelled and screamed, hurling their insults and pelting us with drinks. That's when the other bands came out of the curtain, strapped with BB rifles and pistols. They shoot the crowd. I throw the keyboard as I've seen Trent Reznor do so many times on stage. And I fight the audience, grabbing, feeling the bouncers and police break up the fist fights. Alright. Okay, back to the other reading. Okay, so never mind. It is broken. I cannot get the poetry reading that I did last year to load on the other laptop for whatever reason. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull up some of the stuff on here that I wrote if I can. And I'm going to read some other stuff from this computer. Okay. So this poem is entitled The Feeding of the 10. I wrote it August 2nd, 2013. Okay. I used to reveal secrets. Don't do that normally anymore. But will put in pieces here and there into my works. I finally fell asleep at 5 a.m., praying to God by myself that if I begin to throw up, please wake me, so I do not choke on the vomit and die from suffocation. This prayer came from 14 shots of Southern Comfort, smoked 2 bowls of green marijuana, no beers this time. The fight between me, John, and myself did not happen. John came out of the hospital doped up on pain meds, and Sean never arrived along with Jimmy Honeycutt. Bought Southern Comfort, which is the usual ritual. Poured them out, fed all 10 guests. Practical repetition for Saturday nights. I can be thankful that I didn't die or get a bone broken. Okay. I feel like crap right now. All right. Next one I'm going to read. Next short story is going to be called A Day of Confusion. I wrote it at some point last year. It was around when my friend's mother passed away in the hospital. So I think it was around some time of, it was like 2 months after the Super Bowl last year. So I think it was around June or July, something like that. Okay. A Day of Confusion. And here it came on the day of all days, June 6, 2013, the month of my anniversary of being a Christian. I have now been a Christian for 4 years officially, and I'm not calling it quits. I don't care what feelings my stomach produces and how much my body and others fight against it. I just couldn't give a crap anymore. And this is, before I continue, I was really, really frustrated with God at the time. I was really mad that he wasn't answering my prayers about this really incredibly stressful situation with my friend's mother and her passing away in the hospital. So I don't feel this way anymore, but this is how I felt at the time. So continuing. God purposely didn't listen to my prayers. I prayed hard last night, and we have been for a few years, and had been praying for a few years, but did that matter? No. So my friend's mother has just died 2 hours ago at the Northwest Hospital, and it just goes to show the common man, for a lesson to stop hoping. God can do whatever he wants. He's God. I've been having one hell of a time coming together and understanding, the facts of why God answered my prayers in a sense with my old sick aunt, Nina. He kept her alive for 6 extra months in and out of consciousness, but was she saved? No. Did she get saved and believed? We will never know. The woman was clinically insane. I'm talking about my aunt. So my friend's mother was also not saved, and I understand that she was perhaps in her mid-50s, so they gave her a lot of time, but still, if God is unconditional and being unconditional with an unsaved child, yet she dies, and she goes, at least from how I understand it, from what the Bible says, in the bitter torrents into hell, why? Why? God, why? Why did you let her die? God damn it. If it's not in God's will for people to go to eternal suffering, yet I prayed and was hoping she'd come back. I've only heard about this since I got saved myself, of people coming back from the dead and whatnot. Does God not delight in something like that? Apparently he does, because he didn't listen to my prayers. God's wrath is brought up in the Bible more than his love and forgiveness. So is this what I'm supposed to base this situation off of? She never did in her life, so oh well, that's the penalty? There is a great fear in me of God, but I want to stay pissed for the rest of my life and get vengeance against God, because God allowed this to happen. But son of a bitch, I'm too deep-rooted for that. Just not when it comes to the spiraling hate, spune, cussing, or the monster of sex that I struggle with. I can't lose patience, because I've trained myself to stay under the holy umbrella with all those prayers that did go through and all those Bible studies I had myself, all the times I've taught for 4 years now. So take the turn and drown my sorrows in a force, which is what I wrote. I wrote a second story called Notes, or I'm sorry, no, that's not it. So in a force, I forced myself to read Notes of a Dirty Old Man, which is, I believe, the 3rd edition. That proves to be hilarious, and instead of intoxication by alcohol's usual SoCo and Coke, but draining it in music seduced by angel spit. So I was listening to a lot of angel spit last year. There was no more lack for writing and being a poet right now. A pulse go gladly pushed by my OCD to read and write today, and for the rest of my days. Not this gloom of one day after another, with shit piles in my living room and on my TV. No, I will not be brought down. I don't care if Dorrance Publishing wants to charge me $8,400 to create and promote my poetry pamphlet. What am I saying? I'm not paying for that. Also, Exhibit A, Alicia. Excuse me. She is hesitant to go on this quick book tour, but now hers, along with everyone, is focused on the death of my friend's mother. I know you're thinking, Sean, where are you going with this? I know I'm choosing not to be angry about this, not exactly forgiving, but I'm stuck in mud as it is. I had no money at the time. I was unemployed for 8 months. And Dorrance House Publishing, along with Tate Publishing, took poems that I wrote. I believe I sent Dorrance House Publishing a few poems that went into the book Cut My Sky Out. And then another one, and they liked the poems. It was the repetitive days without its pleasure, and I think 2 other poems I sent to them. And they said that they'll get back to me in 4 days, and they got back to me and said, we want to publish your book. And we're going to do all this, and we're going to give you a campaign, and you're going to go to New York, and like all this stuff. I'm like, I can't believe this. Like, oh yeah, you have to pay $8,400 in order to do this, in order for us to publish you. So I said, no thanks, that's obviously a scam. So I went to Tate Publishing, and I wrote a 3-parter entitled Bukowski's Inferno and sent it to them and said, I want to make a poetry book, will you please pick me up? And they said they picked me up. After reviewing the poems for a few days, they sent me a message back saying, we want to make your book and publish you, but it's going to cost $4,100 to do that. Screw them! Alright, continuing. I bought 2,000 magic cards for $50 off eBay yesterday, and well, I paid for it. Ended up spending $48, not too bad for the price. In the eyes of those dork-ass magic players I love so much, it is just like scratchers. They'll slice each other's throats open for Ice Age boxes and an Underground Sea 3rd edition card. You know, the things like that. I made $7.90 off the 3 magic cards yesterday. It gave me hope enough. I got a check in the mail for sending him like 5 cards that said, here's your check for $7.90. Like, okay, thanks. Rent is $600. $700. Thank you. There is now a void within me, and Cody knows this. He knows it very well. That's my brother. After our Buffalo Wings dinner at the Texas Roadhouse meal last night, found out my best friend's mother just died, and I informed him that I got in my prayer position after flipping a U when shooting the car to the hospital, finding out it's too late. I got in position and said, forget you, God, I'm done. And then I got up from my prayer position and I went to go drink. Cody looked a little shocked, like how could this future pastor say this? He said, that's a little extreme, Sean. I shrugged my shoulders and said, well, it's whatever. This is the last paragraph. What is there really left to say at this point? Sorry. 3 years back, I laid my hands on my aunts and nothing happened. I sat and prayed, and once again, nothing happened. My mother tried to help me by explaining it's not my will. We can only ask, and then got on my ass about Alicia not paying rent and car insurance or some shit like that I didn't care to listen to. Whatever the case, I said I was sorry to God while folding laundry, but that is it for me. I can't tell whether I'm going on a permanent vacation from Christianity or walk off altogether like in the past when I was 12, walking off long and hard away from the Church of Latter-day Saints. Well, that's a little different because Mormonism, that's a cult. It's okay. This next poem's entitled, this is going to be the second to last poem for this private poetry reading, Skycutter. So this is going to be the second to last. It's called Awake on a Dark Bed. I wrote it May 29th, 2013. I had been sick back 5 years ago, praying to God while holding the crest of Satan in my heart, thinking to myself, what has Satan ever done for me? My left hand went pins and needles, then went almost numb. A heart attack I felt coming on. Crying in my bed, awake on a dark bed, asking God to let me live. Please, God, don't kill me. Then both hands went, pins and needles. I saw death very briefly before this incident. It grabbed both my legs in my parents' bathtub. For a split second, I believed the Grim Reaper came for me again. I know this is truth. I don't believe in the Grim Reaper. I should have said the Angel of Death. I don't do drugs, just became drugs. Salvador Dali. No drinking, no LSD, no shrooms, no weed. Yet I saw these things. I fell asleep with hands almost numb. I would wake up in hell, inside a steel small cage with the floor covered in burning maggots. I woke up. I am still alive. Okay. Now I'm going to be reading the last entry for this poetry reading. What? There we go. So this poem's going in my next book. It's called Green Fever. I wrote it October 18th, 2013. It's the last poem. A bathtub is a place of solitude. Actually, one of my favorites. A Mexican man told me on his job, that's where an angry wife sends you to sleep for the night if you had been bad, while in the state of my factotum, laying bricks while two men throw them at my feet, inside the caged truck filled with debris and cut up weeds. I've decided to get those degrees at the Pima College, and as you know, I never did. One associate's for human psychology, one bachelor's for Christian theology or ministry. I can no longer live inside the state of this factotum. When I get home, I put on the water. As I've seen in the picture of Ernest Hemingway, I twisted that knob. With broken hands, I used for plowing, digging, scraping. The night before, I drove to the park to fight one of my friends, and about where I got choked out and my finger bent back. But the rush and the feeling of doing it because you love it gave me such a nirvana that I'm going back on the 26th for a rematch. The tub filled up, and this would be the second bath of the week. One of the greatest places on earth is a bathtub. You can aspire to put fish in it, to live in an aquarium. You can put lobsters and crabs inside that attack the crotch and each other. You get lost inside thoughts, watch YouTube, or stare at your feet until you get inspired to paint an abstract painting. Yes, I have a headache. I was told about my uncle in his 70s sweating in Indian boxes, taking Hail Mary shots in the Vatican Catholic Church, and lying in a hippie igloo tank for the purpose of hallucinations. I asked my dad a question about my old uncle, whom I've never met. I asked, did he ever try a relationship with Jesus? And my dad replied saying, yeah, he already tried that, the Hail Marys at the Catholic Church. The religious convictions and trying to find God within yourself. To me, this is the stench of death and wickedness to follow. Should you have the choice of free will or the ills of addictions and angelic orders? Men don't have bathtubs for themselves, and that's their fault. They use alcohol, they use drugs and orgies to distress, to unwind. Women seek for their salvation and calmness through romantic novels, eating high-fat desserts while keeping the illusion of eating low-fat ones, and watching romantic movies. It's not a death, but more of a life that hasn't come out yet. My name is Sean Stuckey, and this has been Skycutter, the private poetry reading, April 17th, 2014. Thank you. Thank you.